The 7 guests who sent Johnny Carson breaking character. Johnny Carson dominated late-night TV for 3 decades. He wasn't just a host, he was an institution. Each evening, America watched as the serene, quick-witted master of timing lead the country through humor, music, and dialogue. Carson's brilliance lay not in what he did say, but in what he didn't. His hesitations, his looks, his impeccable timing, all honed to perfection. He was the serene hub of late night's tightly wound frenzy, a man capable of maintaining his poise under anything. Or, at least, that's what he seemed to be. A performer with decades of experience at perfecting the character of Johnny Carson, the host, if not necessarily Johnny, the person. As one of his producers who worked with him for years once remarked, he wasn't acting a character like Bob Newhart or Dick Van Dyke, but he was acting a heightened version of himself, the perfect host, a creation honed by time. And that's what made those occasional unscripted bits, the moments when guests were able to cut through his flawless professionalism, so indelible. They were windows on the actual Johnny Carson. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Over 3 decades, very few of his guests ever succeeded. 7 wonderful moments when America's most poised host let his guard down, broke his immaculate rhythm, and exposed something wonderfully human beneath. 1. Jimmy Stewart, the poem that made Johnny cry. It was 1981 when Hollywood icon Jimmy Stewart, the gentle everyman of It's a Wonderful Life, guested on The Tonight Show. There was a comfortable rapport between them that came from their common Midwestern heritage and mutual regard. But nobody, not Johnny, not the crowd, not even the control room, anticipated what followed. Stewart said he'd penned a poem about his golden retriever, Bo, who had just died. Johnny, the good-natured host, offered him an opportunity to recite it, anticipating a touchy-feely moment. But as Stewart read, his stammering, genuine voice filled the studio with subdued sorrow. The poem mapped out the ordinary pleasures of loving a dog, the tennis bowls, the friendship, the silence. Afterward he was gone. As Stewart's voice shook with emotion, something unexpected occurred. The camera captured Johnny wiping his eyes from tears. For a man who based his career on being in control, this was something viewers had never witnessed. The host, always armed with the next witty remark, sat stunned, openly moved. You could have heard a pin drop, remembered a camera operator. Johnny wasn't the host anymore. He was just a man hearing another man cry. When Stewart finished, there was silence. No punchline. No segue. Just bare human connection. Home viewers phoned NBC in tears. For the first time, America saw the man behind the smile, a man of deep-feeling vulnerability and empathy. One of the most replayed moments in Tonight Show history. The night Jimmy Stewart made Johnny Carson weep. 2. Don Rickles, the roast that was too far and too hilarious. While Jimmy Stewart brought tears, Don Rickles brought the opposite, mayhem. Nicknamed the Merchant of Venom, Rickles was the insult comedy king, and his stints on The Tonight Show were the stuff of legend. He insulted everyone, but particularly Johnny. And Johnny enjoyed it. One evening, though, Rickles went further than ever. He ripped into Carson's divorces, his ego, his money, all the forbidden subjects no one was allowed to mention. The crowd gasped, then erupted as Rickles continued. And Carson? He lost it utterly. He couldn't catch his breath, a staff writer recalled. He was slapping the desk, sitting back, gasping for air. What made it remarkable was not the laughter. Johnny laughed constantly. It was the loss of control. The normally urbane host, the man who always directed the dance, was now the one getting destroyed by it. That instant laid bare the affection between the two men. Only Rickles could so do, for beneath the ridicule was love. Carson understood it. He didn't attempt to regain composure or switch gears. He simply let go. The crowd exploded in mutual release, watching their host, not the composed television deity, but a man doubled over, helpless with laughter. Years later, Rickles described those nights as follows. Johnny would never permit anyone else to talk to him the way I did, but he knew it was out of affection. That's the reason it worked. 3. Dean Martin, the unplanned interruption. While Don Rickles ruled with biting remarks, Dean Martin ruled with smooth, off-the-top delivery. It was the mid-1970s, and Carson was halfway through his holy ground, the opening monologue. The one-liners were clean, the timing impeccable, until Dean Martin walked out, cigarette in one hand, shot glass in the other, unannounced. He wasn't supposed to emerge at that time, said a stage manager. He just walked in during mid-monologue and disrupted everything. Carson stalled, then laughed. The monologue, traditionally handled like a delicate instrument, was done. He waved it away and dumped his note cards on the floor. Martin cracked jokes, sipped his drink, and riffed with Johnny as if they were two friends at a bar. For once, Carson didn't guide the moment. He followed. Only Dean could do that, Carson later admitted. Anyone else, I'd have been furious. That interruption became a classic because it revealed something unexpected. Behind the meticulous host was a performer who could embrace chaos, too. When the moment was genuine, Johnny could throw away the script, and that perhaps was his most endearing quality. For Bob Newhart, the quiet assassin. Where Rickles was raucous and coarse, Bob Newhart was precise. His was a dry wit, impeccable timing, and a delivery a slow-burning fire of deadpan excellence. One night, Newhart cracked a joke about airline pilots that built slowly until he delivered a line so subtle but crushing that Johnny absolutely lost it. It was like being hit by a sniper shot, said one writer. Johnny had no move. He just collapsed. Carson, a comedian himself, typically enjoyed humor the way a craftsman would enjoy the craftsmanship of a peer. But Newhart skipped entirely past that filter. Carson slammed the desk, leaned back, and gasped for air through floods of helplessness laughter. What made it gorgeous was the understated way it was done. There wasn't any yelling, any pandemonium, just a single, spot-on line that destroyed 3 decades of cool. It told Carson how much he loved craft precision, and that very few performers could outrun even the great one himself. Later, Carson informed him on the air, "You're the only guy who can get me with 5 words and a pause. I never see it coming." 5. Bette Midler, The Farewell Song. By May 1992, Johnny Carson's reign was over. His last week at The Tonight Show was a procession of farewells, sentimental but mastered. Then there was Bette Midler. She strode on stage with her signature sheen, but when she sang One for My Baby and One More for the Road, straight to Johnny, the mood changed. It was no longer just a performance, it was a farewell between two old friends. As she sang, Carson's calmness dissolved. The camera captured him turning away, eyes shining, attempting to conceal the emotion that 30 years of professionalism had successfully kept in check. For decades, he had been America's soothing companion, but in that moment, he was just a man recognizing it was all over. When she finished, the audience rose in thunderous applause. Carson's voice cracked as he whispered, "That is the best farewell I've ever had." It was the only time viewers saw him that exposed, the mask slipping not because of laughter, but love. It was in every sense the end of an era, and the moment America truly met Johnny Carson, not the host, but the human being. 6. Ed Ames, The Tomahawk Incident. One of Carson's most sincere gag breaks weren't performed or emotional, they were absolutely random. None more legendary than Ed Ames' tomahawk toss in 1965. Ames, showing off frontier skills, hurled a tomahawk at a wooden cowboy cutout. It landed just right, straight in the crotch. For 2 minutes, Carson totally lost it. He couldn't speak, recalled a camera operator. He doubled over, leaning on Ed for support, tears streaming down his face. The studio audience howled as Carson gasped between spasms of laughter, finally able to get out, "I didn't even plan that." It was unplanned comedy perfection, and it exposed something primal. Johnny Carson adored the unexpected. Under all the glitz, he was still that Nebraska boy who lived for the high of uncontrollable laughter. The tomahawk clip is one of The Tonight Show's most watched pieces of footage, not due to the mishap itself, but because it revealed Johnny momentarily undone by the ultimate form of comedy, happenstance. 7. Jonathan Winters, the genius that left him speechless. If there was Anyone who could take down Johnny Carson with imagination alone, it was Jonathan Winters. A deranged genius of improvisation, Winters didn't do jokes. He constructed whole worlds ad lib. When Winters visited The Tonight Show, there was no script. Carson would toss him a prop or a vague prompt. "You're an alien carrot," and Winters would spin it into 10 minutes of unhinged brilliance. Johnny didn't even attempt to rein it in. "He'd send one question," said a producer, "then just sit back and stare like a kid at a circus." Carson would be in stitches, doubled over, in a matter of minutes, unable to go on, his legendary timing abandoned for sheer amazement. Winters was Johnny's comedy hero, a writer recalled. Watching him perform was like watching Johnny revert to childhood. The admiration was obvious, the laughter genuine, the joy uncontainable. Winters didn't just make Carson laugh, he made him a fan again. The line between host and audience vanished. "Nobody makes me laugh harder than Jonathan," Carson later said. "When he gets going, I'm just another member of the audience." Epilogue: The man behind the desk. In 3 decades, Johnny Carson evolved into something greater than just a TV host, America's nightly friend. But the true man never showed his face from behind the curtain. These 7 guests, in poetry, comedy, mayhem, and song, broke that pristine mask and let the audience catch a glimpse of something authentic. A man who would laugh until he wept, weep until he could no longer speak, and wrap his arms around the moments he could not contain. In those spontaneous moments, when the laughter was too authentic or the feeling too unguarded, Johnny Carson wasn't acting anymore. He was just Johnny. And for the millions who saw him night after night, those brief flashes of the man behind the myth were the things they would always remember.